Okay, so today we'll be going over some key areas of good security practice that I believe will have the most impact on our organization. So let's start with a critical piece of modern cybersecurity, which is multi-factor authentication, or MFA for short. And so why is this important? Because passwords alone are not enough. They can be guessed, they can be reused, they can be retrieved from phishing, they can be leaked. So MFA adds that second layer of protection, um, which is requiring something that you have, like your phone, in addition to something like your password. And one common form is time-based one-time passwords, or TOTP. And these are temporary codes generated by apps such as Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. So even if someone steals your password, they won't have access to that second factor that is within those apps. So where should we use MFA? That's everywhere that's available. So that includes email, VPNs, password managers, basically anywhere an account breach could impact our organization. So one extra step can stop most attackers cold, basically. And the other thing I want to go over is blocking ads and spyware. So these are often overlooked, because you might not typically think of ads as being malicious, just more so annoying. Um, and they're not always malicious, but they can be. So a lot of ad networks aren't very well policied, and attackers exploit this through something called malvertising, which is basically ads that deliver malware or redirect you to phishing sites. And then there's spyware, which is software that secretly monitors your activity and then sends it to someone else. So this is why we block them. And there's tools. Something that I personally like is uBlock Origin, um, because it can give us a lot of control over this. So it's uBlock Origin is more than just like an ad blocker, because you can use custom filters and custom rules. Um, and so by doing this, you can block domains that are known to be malicious, things like crypto miners and other sort of tracking software. So um, I would recommend layering protection, so using browser-based blockers as well as system-level tools like Malwarebytes, that can scan for spyware. So don't just trust pop-ups to warn you. It's important to build your defenses before the threat arrives. And the third thing I want to talk about is something called shoulder surfing, um, as well as screen locks. So this is more of like a physical thing, shoulder surfing, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's someone literally looking over your shoulder to get sensitive information. Um, it's kind of more of like an old school, real world form of social engineering, but obviously it still works. And so that's why blocking your screen is super important, especially when stepping away from your workstation. And to do that simply on Windows, you can hit the Windows key plus L. And if you use Mac, you can hit Control, Command, and Q. And so it just takes 1 second and it keeps prying eyes out. You never know. Um, and especially if you travel or you're working in that shared space, um, you might also consider privacy screen filters, and just always be aware of your surroundings, because attackers don't always just work online. Sometimes they're standing right behind you, so you have to stay alert with that. And the fourth thing is social engineering awareness. So this is arguably the most successful method attackers use today is social engineering. Um, In fact, like over 90% of breaches begin with social engineering. And that's just simply because the human element of security is always the weakest link, right? Humans are very easy to exploit. So things like phishing emails or fake authority figures, tailgating, these things are all attempts to exploit trust and routine. Um, and tailgating in particular is what you can see here on in the image is just literally following someone into an area or like a building that you don't necessarily have credentials to get into, but the person you're following does. And human psychology, people want to be good people. They're probably just going to hold the door for you or let you in. So, um, people might not think about it, but it's something that's part of humans that's actually very easy to exploit. Is just the good nature of most people. Um, so, things to do to avoid ending up in those situations where you're getting taken advantage of is one, thinking before you click, two, verifying before you trust, and three, reporting before you ignore. So look out for phishing red flags like urgent messages or strange URLs, misspelled domains, spoofed email addresses, things like this. Um, and then just remember, tailgating, you don't always have to be polite, um, especially if it's possibly dangerous. Um, so the bottom line is question first, and then comply second, and then always report anything suspicious immediately using our internal process. And the fifth thing I want to go over is strong passwords. So this is the foundation of digital security. And they're basically just essentially, passwords, just keys that allow access to things. So the more predictable or reused a key is, the easier it is for attackers to guess it, especially if they use tools that help them to brute force or credential stuff. Um, so long passphrases, um, something like yellow moon elephant dances, these are actually more secure than short, complex passwords. Um, for example, just the word password, but maybe you swapped out the A for an at sign. Maybe you swapped out the O for a zero, and then you tacked on an exclamation point at the end, which is something actually a lot of people do. When they see they need a symbol, they just put a exclamation point onto the end of their password. So attackers know this. This is not the best thing to do. Passphrases are actually extremely secure because it's just random, a random coupling of words. So the combination to actually brute force this or try to guess this password is actually a lot harder than a simple word that is maybe has so many swap outs, like swapping out an S for a 5 or whatever. There's a lot more combinations is what I'm getting at with a passphrase, so it's a lot harder for attackers to actually brute force them or guess them. Um, and then secondly is reusing passwords. So you don't want to do this because it's extremely risky. If one of your passwords gets leaked and every other account you have is using that same password, that those accounts are now vulnerable too. So that's why things like password managers are super important. So tools I would recommend are 1Password, um, KeePass, or Bitwarden, um, because they can store strong, unique passwords for every account. Um, and then just a tip, not to store passwords in your browser unless it's encrypted and tied to a secure profile. Um, so yeah, just to summarize, use passphrases. If you can, use a password manager and never reuse passwords across accounts. Um, and that's what I would say is a good trifecta of password hygiene. And before I wrap up, I just want to remind everyone about the Cyber Awareness Olympics, which is our new training initiative at the EWS Corporation. So this is basically a gamified interactive program that I designed to make security awareness fun and competitive and effective. So we'll cover real world threats and best practices through those scenarios, and we'll have quizzes and team-based challenges. And then finally, just something to end on is remembering that security is a shared responsibility. So every good habit that we adopt strengthens our organization's defenses, and every careless moment is a possible vulnerability. So if we all work together to build a security first culture at EWS, we will be safe, we will be fine. Thank you. And just some notes on the creation of the slideshow.